790 WPIC, Sharon Hermitage, a Cumulus station, sponsored by the Ridgewood at Shenango Valley, a premier senior living residence.
Campaigning on the Sunday talk shows. Dallas suspect's father. I'm Evan Haining. Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman John Podesta today told NBC's Meet the Press what her candidacy means for America.
She's projecting into the future what the country needs, whether that's paid leave, child care, the kinds of policies that will both strengthen families, improve the economy.
Republican Jeb Bush, who is expected to announce tomorrow, told CNN State of the Union what to expect from his campaign.
It's a very competitive field. It'll take time. It always does. People make up their mind in the last weeks of these primaries. So my expectation is that we'll have slow, steady progress.
The search continues for two escaped murderers in New York State, but Governor Andrew Cuomo says he doesn't know if they're still in the area or in Mexico by now. David Sweat and Richard Matt have been on the run for 9 days. Cuomo says there will be zero tolerance for anyone who has helped them. I'm Evan Haining. Well, a man suspected of planting explosives and shooting up Dallas police headquarters had a record of behaving violently. James Bulware's father said his son blamed police for his personal problems.
I tried to tell him the police didn't do it. The police were doing their job to enforce the laws. If you want to get to that, you got to go back to the liberal people that put these laws in place.
The gunman was shot dead in his van by a police sniper. The White House envoy for the Global Coalition to Counter ISIS, Brett McGurk, tells NBC's Meet the Press the terror group poses a real threat to the U.S.
This is something we've never seen before. The number of jihadist fighters coming into Syria now are about 24,000. Depending on who's counting, but it's about twice as many that went into Afghanistan over 10 years to fight the Soviet Union in the 1980s. We know what that led to. So we have to get a handle on this.
A swarm of mayflies was so dense it caused 3 motorcycle accidents in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. The LNP newspaper reports piles of mayflies several inches deep at the Route 462 bridge. I'm Evan Haining.
Johnny wants to be a performer, and everybody knows school costs money. Johnny wants to know what he has to do to become a performer. Plus, he needs experience before he decides to spend the money for school. Johnny's confused. He has no one to talk to about his choices. He then hears an ad on the radio about Media8tor Arts Academy, where he can perform, network, train, and find a place to prepare for school. Johnny has found a place to expand his talents to make his decision and also increase his resume. Now, let's explain how Johnny got signed up. He went online to Media8inc.com and clicked on register. They called him back, asked him what his vision was, then found a place for him to perform. Whether it's theater, music, or movies, as long as Johnny is willing, Media8inc.com is able. And that's the story of how Johnny became a performer through Media8 Arts Academy.
Earth just got a call back from a comet 330 million miles away.
Last November, a spacecraft ended a 10-year journey by landing on a comet. And because that landing site was near a cliff, the sun's rays were blocked. With low battery power, it went into hibernation. Yesterday, the European Space Agency received a tweet saying, "Hello, Earth, can you hear me?" That lander, about the size of a washing machine, is going to be sending back more information as its solar panels become charged. I'm Pat Piper.
Well, it's one thing to beat thousands of poker players at their own game. It's another to win a World Series of Poker event in a game you've never played before. And that's what Christian Pham of St. Paul, Minnesota did on Thursday. He'd signed up for No Limit Texas Hold'em, but accidentally entered to play No Limit Deuce to 7 Draw Lowball. When he was dealt 5 cards instead of 2, he figured he was in the wrong game, but he ended up winning the tournament's coveted gold bracelet. I'm Evan Haining.
Have you ever thought about publishing a book, but just didn't know how to do it? Well, at Media8, we try to make publishing simple. You ask questions, we give you answers. You want a book? We find the right option for you to publish. When you need advice about getting your methods out to the world, Media8 is the place to call. Register today at Media8inc.com, where we make ideas seem simple.
This is a dangerous groups that we're dealing with now. It was a nightmare.
Flight 807, you're clear for landing. Runway 7, Bravo. theater, fellow citizens. The mediator is here.
All doctors to the ER. All nurses to the nurses station. Code blue 305. Shots fired, shots fired. Officer down. I repeat, officer down. 911, what's your emergency? Evacuations continue tonight in Maribel.
Apartments, you can see this evacuation notice on one door.
Rolling. Motion. Roll sound. And action.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ohio and Pennsylvanians, welcome to the Media with me, your host, Brian West. I am sparkless today. I have my man, Carl Johnston. We are going to talk about the microbiology and the effect that it has on us and the future of it. Now, microbiology, if you don't know, is everywhere. Carl, you there on the line?
Oh, yes, Brian.
Excellent, excellent. We are talking about microbiology today and the science of it, the future of it. If people don't know, this is an important topic because everybody knows that it's every day that we encounter things that we cannot see. Organisms, the meanings of life, the creation, the spontaneous events that occur every day without us even knowing, the things we touch, the people we see, they have all types of things on them. So Carl, now what made you get into the field of microbiology?
Well, way back in when I was a kid up in Canada, I read a lot of science fiction, and I was interested in life and how life works, and also I was really interested in genetic engineering. And where I grew up, they didn't have a program in genetic engineering, but microbiology, I learned you could learn the tools of genetic engineering. So I went into that as an undergraduate student, and I found that I liked doing research in the environment, and so I was working on lakes up in Canada with it was that experimental lakes area, and so they were doing experiments on ecosystems.
And for everybody out there, I'm going to cite the reference for today's show. Today's show comes from Microbiology for Dummies by Jennifer Stearns, Michael Soretti, and Jolene Kaser. They are some people who wrote the book that I did my research on. So we're going to get into this today. Now, to give you an idea, Carl, is that we're faced now with, they have viruses they're continuing to spread, like they have the Ebola virus, they have so many other viruses. You have anthrax, influenza, tuberculosis, HIV, cholera, smallpox, and there's still some that are unknown. So people have not, when it comes to science, even now that we live in a day and age where people are starting to see the importance of both even science and religion, in a sense, I don't think they understand the importance of microbiology. You guys are kind of like the angels that come to the rescue when people are going through, things that they can't find the cure for. So your field is very important to life itself. So talk a little bit about the future. What you see in science and religion in a general. What your take is on that?
Okay. Well, with there's microbes all over the place, like you said. The human body has 10 times more microbes in it than human cells. So just each individual person is outnumbered by bacteria.
Oh, yeah.
And within their own body. And so we're really part of a community of microorganisms plus ourselves. So each person is like a whole ecosystem. And so that's one thing that is getting more study right now. We have tools to just start to understand all the different microbes that are there and learn some of the things how they're affecting us. Now with diseases, you mentioned a number of diseases. Some of them are bacteria diseases. They're caused by bacteria, and some are viral diseases caused by viruses. So, it's been in, the golden age of microbiology. In the 1800s, there was a lot of scientists just learning about the role of germs in disease, and they came up with germ theory, which was the theory that germs cause disease. People didn't know what was causing disease. They thought it might be you get a hex, or somebody puts a spell on you, or you were a bad person, or whatever.
Yeah, they did believe it. I think it was superstition in the sense of, I think they were kind of, but I think now in this cycle that we're living in now, I mean, when you talk about the future, you had Robert Hooke, you had, I think it was Antonio Van Leeuwenhoek. Leeuwenhoek, and he was an amateur, but he did have a big thing in that. And when they started to see this, I think there was some, I'll see, my belief is there's a purpose. I think everything has its purpose. And one thing I was, when I was looking and doing the research on this topic, I saw how even the evolutionist theory has a purpose. I mean, you talk about microbes all in the ocean, and then they merge into what they feel. I mean, some people who believe in evolution, some people don't, skeptics and things like that. But when you look at all this and how it matches up, I mean, when you look at the genetic makeup of human beings, and it talks about even the extinction and how some species die off, some species maintain dominance and things like that. I think every field kind of has a purpose, you know, when you talk about that in a sense, because biology, it's almost like you can't explain everything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Science is trying to answer questions using logic and using testable hypotheses. If you can't test something as a hypothesis, if you can't support it with evidence, then that's not part of science. There's a confusion where scientists might say there's no God, or there is a God. Well, that's outside of the realm of science. Don't get into trying to prove there's a God or not. So that's not part of the discussion of science.
No. I mainly want to talk
evolution. That's the framework of biology, the science of living things, and without the theory of evolution, biology doesn't make sense. Really discuss biology without having at least some understanding of evolution. Now, it's like the Earth was it's about 6 billion years old.
Yeah, it's pretty.
And then it was 5 billion years old, and there's been life on Earth for about 4 billion years, and that first life was some microorganisms, the simplest form of life. And then since then, there's been greater and greater numbers and differences in types of organisms, and we've evolved from those simple microbes, and like our own cells are made up of different lineages or families of bacteria. And so, like the human cell or eukaryotic cell has all of these different lines of microorganisms. We've all started from.
No, they were talking about in my studies. I did some studies on. They were talking about the antibiotics and how the opposing force of bacteria is starting to adapt. And what are some of the things that microbiologists are doing to counter the adaptation of certain bacteria to antibiotics?
Well, yeah, that's a real serious issue. With people using antibiotics for things that they're not really needed for. The overuse of antibiotics is an evolutionary force. We're selecting for microbes that can survive antibiotics. And so if somebody is taking antibiotics and they don't take the appropriate antibiotics, or they don't take enough of it, you don't kill the target organism. You might have weakened it, but it's still there, and it has some genes that are allowing it to survive the antibiotics. And what happens is these microbes with that antibiotic resistant gene, those genes transfer to other microbes, and you can have like a little cassette of DNA that gets more and more different antibiotic resistance built on it. So we get these superbugs with genes that are resistant to multiple antibiotics. And
they say that antibiotics was discovered by accident. Do most things that scientists discover, are they by accident, or, I mean, since you're in the field?
Well, some things are. I don't know how much would be discovered by an accident, but the story of how they were discovered was there was penicillin, which is a mole that was growing on a plate.
Yeah.
And the fellow is trying to grow. Fleming is trying to grow bacteria. He got a moldy plate, and so he's going to throw the plate out. But he looked at it, and around where the mold was growing, the bacteria couldn't grow. And so he thought that might be, or he thought it was interesting. He noted it down, but it was only later another scientist went back and realized the significance.
Yeah.
That was penicillin, the first antibiotic. Anyway, when that was first invented or discovered, it was really a fungi had been using penicillin, for millions of years against bacteria.
Yeah.
Well, now humans could use that. We use that as a tool to fight other bacteria. But then using that penicillin over and over, we're selecting for microbes that then aren't affected by penicillin.
Yes.
So, and one of the big problems with antibiotic use in United States and many countries is use in agriculture. Agriculture uses about maybe 4 times the amount of antibiotics that is used for human health. So, and what they're using it for is in industrial agriculture, it's used to prevent their animals from getting sick. So the animals are overcrowded. They're given antibiotics. They're not sick yet, but they're given antibiotics even before they're sick. And whether or not they get sick, they're just loaded with antibiotics.
Yes.
And then these these cows or pigs or chickens or whatever, they're defecating, and the microbes that went through their system have been accustomed and adapted to high levels of antibiotics, and they're more resistant. And then it's generating that's a big source of antibiotic resistance, along with how much humans use it in preventative medicine.
Now, Carl, when we talk about pesticides and because if people don't know, human beings and animals have two certainly different types of bacteria that they naturally have. So when we talk about that, now there have been skeptics over, I think, in the past, even when you listen to some of the music, some of the people who think they believe that some viruses or things that were man-made. But from my research, I don't, the way I look at how critical, like you said, the evolutionary cycle of certain bacteria and fungi and how all these, when you talk about, I think it's eukaryotes and then prokaryotes and things like that. So when these things kind of evolve, and then I think there's something that happens to where there's almost like an opposition force. Do you think some of these viruses are man-made?
I would think that they're not.
I don't think they are.
There would be that would be a sort of a fringe group of people that would think that. Now, our technology is getting so that we can modify. Humans have the technology to modify viruses and possibly make them more virulent or nasty. I'm not aware of the research in that area. There might be some anyway, that's sort of out of my field of knowledge.
I just don't. I mean, just to be honest with you, Carl, I just don't think some people understand. I mean, the purpose of this show was to try to get people to understand the importance and the fact that, you know, human beings, I mean, as I was doing and watching it, and how the importance of life is so important. Some people devalue life, and you see it right now happening in this new age that we live in, where people just don't value the life they have. But as I was doing my research on the topic, I was just seeing that microbiology, in a sense, it's almost like a godsend, because right now, I mean, if you go to most countries, they don't have the vaccinations, they don't have the ability to adapt, they don't have the research, and most doctors or people who study microbiology who are on the field, they're out there trying to find answers, and they're trying to find cures. And people, I used to be a critic, trying to figure this out myself, because I don't think doctors are given enough credit. You know, when you cannot produce enough vaccinations, then you can't save the world. And right now, so many people are ganging up on these groups of people who are trying, like, I mean, even with the Ebola scare.
Anti-vaccinations?
Yeah, the anti-vaccinations and things like that.
Yeah. Well, there was a paper that was published maybe 15 years ago, and it was actually written. It was science that was false information in a paper, and it was later retracted, and the authors had to take it back because of the poor quality of the data.
Yeah.
And since that paper was published, the information went to the general public, and there's people in the general public that were afraid that vaccines might lead to autism and other things. Now, there is no link between vaccinations and autism. Now, there may be side effects from vaccinations.
Yeah.
There's side effects from anything. But the greatest danger is if you have a population of people that are not vaccinated.
Yeah, absolutely.
For some of these known diseases, and then you can have a disease sweep through. It could be, like an epidemic or a mild epidemic, depending on what the disease is and how many people have not been vaccinated. So yeah, there's a new and emerging diseases. These are diseases that people have not encountered until recently, and those diseases, there is a need to develop vaccinations against those, but it takes time.
It takes a lot of time, actually.
Yeah, well, yeah, it takes a number of people, it can be a number of years to come up with a vaccine.
I mean, even I think when you look at Edward Jenner, I mean, the smallpox, the cowpox, the smallpox vaccination with cow scabs, I mean, but using the pus, that's almost like a spontaneous genius to be able to find a cure. That's why I say I honor the field of microbiology so much, because it's complicated, and it takes a lot. I mean, you have to think out the box pretty much. You know, who would have thought that cow scab, pus from a cow, from a cow scab could vaccinate smallpox, at that particular time. So,
well, that was actually something that people there were milkmaids back in the 1800s, and they were the people that were milking cows, they were in close contact with a cow, and so they would end up getting cowpox, which is a mild form of the disease. And I think people in Turkey had been doing that for centuries before Jenner knew about that type of vaccination. It was called variola. It was, I can't remember the name of the process they called it then, but so there there were observations. There were different people that had been aware of that, and there was an expression where people were saying she had the complexion of a milkmaid. That's because a milkmaid might have gotten cowpox. She wouldn't get smallpox. It wouldn't have. She wouldn't have deformed pock marks all over her body. So anyway, so that was just one of the.
Well, I mean, it's just the more I dived into microbiology, I almost felt so much to study the field. I see how you got into it. I see what made you get into it. I mean, do you have a family and things like that, Carl?
Yeah, my wife is. She's also a scientist. She's got her Ph.D. in biology.
Oh, wonderful!
We collaborate or work together as part of a team, and I have graduate students and undergraduate students doing research in the lab.
So, what are some of the things that you're working on, Carl?
I have students who are working on the Mahoning River sediment, and so I don't know how much you're aware of the Mahoning River, but the legacy of pollution from the steel industry is still with us in the Mahoning River sediments. There's really contaminated sediments there. They're filled with petroleum, hydrocarbons.
Yes.
Nasty carcinogenic molecules called PAHs. Those are like fused benzene rings. And these are chemicals. Anytime you have combustion, if you burn something, you get PAHs. So people who are smoking cigarettes, they're generating PAHs. You burn your steak, that's PAHs. And then those are chemicals that cause cancer, mutations. They're toxic. Anyway, the sediment we found, we had a paper published last year showing that the sediment has the second most level of PAH contamination that anybody has published in the world.
Amazing.
China wins, and Mahoning River is number 2. So,
wow. So you guys are trying. I mean, what are you trying to purify? I mean, what are some of the techniques?
We're interested in the microbes that are living in that sediment. You would think this is so nasty, nothing would be able to live in it. Well, there's still millions of bacteria in just a small, gram of sediment. And so we're interested in studying those microbes, see which ones are there, and some of them we're finding they can degrade some of these organic, nasty molecules. So I'm interested in someday being able to try and clean up some of this sediment using the microbes that have been adapted to that situation.
Ladies
That's one project.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the halfway point. You're tuned into the Media with Brian West. I am Sparks today. She is in Cleveland, probably partying for the Cavs game. Sparks is a partier. I'm not. So I spend my time studying while she enjoys herself. So you're listening to the Media. If you want to contribute and get your name mentioned or recognition on some of our credits, you can donate to the program at method8inc.com. Again, that is method8inc.com. I'm talking to Carl Johnston today. We're having an interesting topic about microbiology and the future of it, because I think while people are out enjoying and filling themselves with yeast and things like that, they do not understand that with everything that Carl was talking to me and Carl talking about today is affecting them as the years go by. Like you said, the Mahoning River, the toxins that we're putting in the air, the globe. I mean, if you go outside right now and you see soot on top of your car, you may not, if you don't know what it is, I advise you to get into the field of microbiology and try to figure out what you can do to stop it. It is important. It is vital to evolution and to our ways of life. Now, Carl, when you talk about the field of microbiology and you talk about the toxins, now these are what people don't understand. Now let me give you an example of I did my own. I seen one myself when I did a project. Now I watched this when I was we had did some work in my basement when me and my family used to live on the street, and we had a basement, and I watched the mutation of spiders because of certain materials that we had put in the air. Now, this is because of toxins. These spiders were growing I think they had 2 heads. And so when you talk about that, when you talk about genetics and microbiology and how vital it is that people wake up to understand that it might not even be the vaccinations that are causing mutations. It might be the toxins that we have within ourselves. I mean, within our water and things like that. So when you talk about these industries, like when you talk about the coal industry, and I mean, I'm not going to bash anybody today, but when you do talk about these industries that specialize in putting chemicals in the air that can kill the atmosphere, which is nature, and put the ripple effect, that stuff is in the rain and things like that. So tell us a little bit about that, Carl.
Well, the steel industry was unregulated up through the 1970s, and so there was no Environmental Protection Agency. There was no Clean Air Act, but when Nixon was president, he put in some of this legislation to start protecting the environment. So in the 70s, the steel industry, they had to spend more money to not pollute, and it may have been less economically competitive compared to opening a plant in a part of the world where there's no regulation.
Yeah.
So we lost some of our industry in this area, possibly because of environmental regulation. But now we're not polluting the air as much in the United States, and there still is steel companies in this area, but they're now subject to proper regulation, and they're not spewing out the contamination in the way that it had been.
So do you believe?
Years up to the 70s.
Carl, do you believe in the global warming theory? Do you believe in that?
Well, as a mainstream scientist, it's not really much of a stretch to accept what mainstream climate scientists say, that there is global warming, and the overwhelming evidence supports that it's human caused.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are cycles in climate, but we're in the last 10 years have had 9 record high world temperatures.
Yeah.
Averaged over the year. There's no doubt that carbon dioxide levels are higher than in the last several 100,000 years.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt that CO2, carbon dioxide, acts the same way greenhouse glass works.
Yeah.
The theory of global warming is the same as the theory of having a car and you leave the door shut or you leave the window shut.
Yeah.
And you heat things up. So there's no discussion about that among serious scientists. So now there's political discussion about global warming, and there's a very few people with money interests that want to discount global warming and to make it obscure what's going on. But there's no doubt among scientists and even amongst most citizens in the United States, and definitely in people in other parts of the world, people are noticing there's change in their local environment. Not everywhere is going to get hotter, but you go up into the Arctic, things are melting. We're losing our permanent ocean.
Well, I think to be a witness, I think people have become ignorant of the fact that most of the laws that are being passed and most of the business that we see, like I told one guy, I said we were talking about side effects. I said I was trying to explain to him that everything has a side effect. I mean, 1 minute you could see the internet booming, but then again, you may have children who are losing out on exercise. So I think what you're saying is that if we don't start taking attention to our environment, paying attention as citizens and as people, I mean, like I said, most people are going out and they're spending their time doing things that are not going to be beneficial. And I mean, I said, when I was watching, I was reading most of the stuff about, it talks about how most life comes from water and how things mix up and things happen. And there's so much oil, I think, in the ocean. I mean, there's so many things that we've, as human beings ourselves, have just lost touch with. We've lost touch with I mean, I don't even know if it's ethics. I just think it's just ignorance about the way we treat each other, the way we treat the planet and things like that. So I think what you're saying, but basically to get this to where it needs to be is microbiology in a sense is watching all this take place, and I think you guys are doing everything you can. So what are some of the things that you guys are doing to put this on the forefront that people can pay attention to what is actually going on in the atmosphere and just in water and everything?
Well, I think people need to be aware of our effects on multiple fronts. I mean, our use of fossil fuel. The more fossil fuel we use, the more global warming. If we can go to passive energy sources, there's wind, there's solar. That would help with decreasing our impact on global warming. And we have a huge population. There's over 7 billion people on the planet, and there's never been 7 billion people until now. And before that, there's never been 6 billion, 5 billion. In the last 100 years, there's been more people born than had ever lived throughout all of history.
Yeah.
So we just have a huge impact on the whole planet. And the chemicals we use, those also have an effect. So if we're using pesticides, that is killing bad pests, then it's killing other good insects. So we're wiping out some nasty pests, and we're wiping out the bees. Bees for pollination. Anyway, so we should be aware of those things, and people that have lawns, we can try and use alternatives to harmful chemicals. You can look at what chemicals you have in your house. Try and use less of that. Cleansers that are not toxic. You can use vinegar and baking soda as a cleanser. Anyway, people need to educate themselves with what.
Yes, to be honest with you, Carl, I honestly believe that people. I don't think people understand how important this topic is. When you talk about the eradication of the dinosaurs, when you talk about how we've become to be the dominant species. I mean, even when you look at the food chain, when you talk about human beings being at the top of the food chain, if you are no longer, and one thing I did learn about the evolutionary cycle is that once a species loses its dominance and becomes fragile, then they lower, they become smaller so that means they go into extinction. So if we kill ourselves, in a sense, what it sounds like we're talking about here, then we've eradicated ourselves from the globe. And even if you talk about it from a biblical standpoint, when you talk about the Bible and you talk about how God, in a sense, in that sense, I think I was talking to somebody about this, they were talking about the coming of Christ, and I said, if you, I don't mean to, I said, I was raised Christian, so my beliefs is that I think it tells you in the scripture that God gave us choice, the ability to be able to choose the things that we can do. That means we have the ability I have the ability to accept you, I have the ability to not accept you. But when we're talking about the choices that we make every day, people are not very good at making smart choices. Why do you think that is? Why do you think people are just not aware of making? Like I said, I watch people do some amazing things in life. They just can't seem to make the right decisions. Like when you say education takes time, thought, and meditation. Why can't people do the right thing? I mean, it's crazy.
Well, I think we're getting into it's beyond the field of microbiology.
No, it's just a curve. I just want to know what you think.
I think that there's been in the last 20 years or so, education has been defunded by the government. There's less support. I think that if we really want to make change, people have to be educated. We need to invest in the future, which would be, I think, children need to be well educated. We should be funding our kindergartens, our preschool, our elementary, all the way up.
Yeah,
Now, that's if we want people to be truly educated. And when they go to school, they have to have food in their belly. Nobody hungry is going to be able to learn.
Yeah.
So we need to invest in our young people and have the resources for them to learn about the world. And they need quite a bit of support.
So it sounds like you're saying, Carl, that somewhere in our past endeavors, especially when we've elected people in office, that we've pretty much forgotten about education. Do you think that's a country thing, or do you think that's a worldwide thing?
It's a lot of that is in the United States. Other countries are, well, if you look at how the United States ranks in educating its population, it's something like number 27 or 28. So the U.S. education is very good for those people with enough money to pay for a good education.
Yeah.
But if you're not one of those people, you've been neglected by our system here. And other countries have made a choice that everybody should be educated. Everybody should have a chance to start out equal.
Yeah.
And I don't know why we don't look at that here.
Well, I think
it's important for everybody to have a chance to get a good education, be able to get ahead.
Well, it takes people like you to change the culture. I think a lot of people look towards the politicians to change the culture, but I think it takes people who are in the field of study, who are on the field. And I mean, just when I seen this, when I did my research on the topic, I mean, I read the whole book on microbiology. I wanted to know. Well, I did some things back in the past, but I wanted to update myself, refresh my thoughts. And I was very amazed with the DNA and the RNA and how these viruses come in. Like you have like HIV and it's almost like these viruses come in because of, I don't know if it's negligence or it's almost like they just they spawn up out of, it's like a force of nature that is kind of hard to predict. That's why I do believe there.
Yeah, the HIV virus, it's an RNA virus. So there's DNA, which has the genetic information for all of life. That's the blueprint. And there's DNA in every cell. Well, this virus, DNA produces RNA, that's like the working model for whatever proteins are made. So anything in the cell has an RNA that was sequenced from DNA. Anyway, RNA viruses, these HIV viruses, go and enter the cell as an RNA and then do a reverse transcription, make DNA, and then insert that DNA, the viral DNA, into a cell. They take over the cell. So it's like they're a pirate of a human cell. And then the human cell is used to make more viruses. And so it's been hijacked
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very intricate, very interesting, and more than interesting when you're someone who has that disease or someone has that disease.
Well, I think I was going to say, I think people who are in the field and you're watching it take place, it's almost like a revelation. You get a pause in time, that awe moment when you're watching these micro things that we can't even see, even in cancer cells and things like that, when they misbehave, and you're watching it and you're like, oh my God, it's almost like they're going at war with each other, and these are small, little everyday things. That's why I say the universe is just in itself is unbelievable. And if you're in the field could you imagine sitting there and you watch these guys when they first discover this, and they're sitting there and they say, it was probably like not only just a Sputnik moment, but a time where they're probably sitting there like, oh my God, we've just discovered all the meanings to life,
Yeah, well, when I was in a microbiology class before people knew what was going on with HIV, and my microbiology professor was explaining about the new disease that's coming out in people in New York, and he was telling us, be careful about sex. You better be very, protect yourselves, or avoid sex and all that sort of thing. And but he was this was in the early 80s, and at that time, before HIV and before there was all this antibiotic resistance, people weren't worried about sexually transmitted diseases.
Yeah, I heard.
If you had an STD, then you could get antibiotics and you were fine. And so the appearance of HIV was it was a big game changer. And also a lot of these other diseases, and some of them sexually transmitted, that can't be fought with antibiotics. It makes you think you better
Now, in the olden days, if you do want to talk about religion, they would have the priests. They would have to purify the houses of the people of mold and things like that. And I think we've kind of, if you look at the field of priestlyhood and the field of people actually being schooled, I'd overheard a conversation the other day about how nuns, how they would have to be very critical in how they would train students. Sometimes they would have to resort to the paddle and things like that. So now that we are just, we lack discipline. Like you said, the investment in education has gone totally downhill. I think we've been more trying to make kids happy, or some type of, I don't know what has happened, but that brings a good point when you talk about purification and the idea that human beings, we have responsibility. I don't think we understand the importance of that. Do you agree?
Well, yeah, we have to, as individuals, we have to take charge of our lives. We have control of some things. We don't have control of everything in our lives, but yeah, we need to have some self-discipline in many ways. Yeah, I agree.
Now we're down to the last. We're almost down to the last 10 minutes. We're actually at 11 minutes, but I do want to give you some time to talk a little bit about more some of the things that you're doing, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Media with Brian West and Alicia Sparks. Alicia is out today. She is in Cleveland, probably having something to do with the Cavs. I can imagine that. But I am a workaholic, so I came into the studio to make sure everything got done. But we're talking to Carl Johnston, and he is a YSU professor, I believe, and he is talking about we are talking about the importance in the future of microbiology and why life is not over. We have to take charge, and I think that is the future of mankind. We'll be taking charge of our responsibilities and understanding the importance of everyday life, going out there, cleaning. And I did some cleaning today after I read the book, and how important it is to clean and make sure everything is cleaned up, and just trying to maintain that healthy life by watching what you eat and making sure you pay attention to what's in your food, see what people are doing, try to stop them from smoking cigarettes, try to get the toxins out of the air, watch your politicians, see what they're passing, and make sure that you try to protect the environment. I think it's called going green in this new environment. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think going green would be useful for if we want to survive as a species. We're going to have to do a lot of changes. My research is not. I don't have any research that's going to save the world, but everybody. What I'm trying to do some things that might help here and there. It takes all of humankind to make some big changes.
Yeah.
But I want to learn. My research is to try and learn what's happening in the world, and in some specific areas. And if we have a little bit of knowledge, we could make some decisions. And what can we do about things if we learn we're maybe not doing something correctly? We need to make those changes. We can't make those changes. We have to live by the consequences.
Yeah, like I told you when I look at that. As I said, when I told you I looked at that spider, it had 2 heads just because of some toxins that we had put in the basement. I couldn't believe it. But now you're saying that let's talk about some other things that you're doing besides Mahoning River. What are some of the other things?
Well, I have one project going on. A number of students are working on where we're looking at the effect of probiotics on the microbes that are in our digestive system, and then ideally I'd like to see if there's an effect on stress, and the U.S. military would like to be able to reduce stress in especially people in combat. So if we can find out some way to reduce stress through dietary change, that would be great.
Yeah.
And so I have an experiment where we're looking at the effects of probiotics. We had some volunteers take probiotics, and then we were looking at what microbes are surviving in their intestines, and then providing them with a stress, and then measuring their stress response.
Yeah.
We didn't have enough. Our study is not finished, but we're not likely to be able to say much about the effect of these probiotics on stress.
Yeah.
We do see a change in the microbes, and what we see in the literature, many people are doing a number of different studies, and what it looks like now is how we eat, that affects how we feel, and then how we feel can interact with how are we stressing out? Are we worried about things? Can we handle our emotions?
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's one project. I don't have all of the results yet, but we're learning some things. And then another project I'm going to be starting in this spring coming up. I have a leave where it's like a half a sabbatical. So I get to go somewhere for a few months. And so my wife is from Peru. I've been to Peru a number of times, and I met a fellow scientist at a national meeting, and he's from Peru.
Mm-hmm.
So we came up with a plan of what we would like to do, and he's been studying a bacteria. It's a Vibrio, which is the same type of bacteria that causes cholera.
Oh.
It's Vibrio parahemolyticus. And, it is not quite as nasty as Vibrio that causes cholera, but it's changing. It's showing up more on along the coast of Peru, and it causes food poisoning, and it could be invasive in wounds. So we're looking at its new appearance, and we want to track it and see what's happening with that particular bacteria now.
Yes, I mean, the important, like I said, the future of microbiology, I don't see you guys letting up. If any of you college students are out there listening, try to get in the field. You could possibly change the future. What are some of the new innovations that you've seen come out now that we are in this golden age of technology and being able to monitor things that we have not been able to monitor before? What are some of the new things that you see coming out?
Well, there's there's some technologies coming out where we might be able to use viruses against bacteria instead of using antibiotics. Every organism has viruses, not just people, not just animals. Even bacteria can have viruses. So maybe instead of antibiotics, we might be able to use some viruses that are only going to attack, pathogenic bacteria. I mean, that would be one positive direction of research that may help us we have some toxins in the environment, in many different types of toxins. There's a lot of environmental microbiologists that are studying the ways microbes can be used to degrade some of those environmental pollutants. So that would be beneficial. We may be able to develop plastics. Microbes may be able to use some plastics that don't stay in the environment. We're dumping plastics in the ocean all over, and we're strangling sea life with all of this plastic. So if we could have plastic that can fall apart easily after we're finished using it, that would be a big innovation.
And you said.
So I mean, these are things that scientists may be able to do and work on. But right now, that there's too many people on the planet with too much impact per person on the environment, and it's the people in the richer countries that are having more of an impact. So, like, one person in the United States has maybe 100 times more impact on the environment than a person in Haiti. So wealthy people have to pay attention to what they're doing.
To be honest with you, I don't think wealthy people right now. I think they're. To be honest with you, I don't know where we went wrong on that, Carl. But I do know.
Middle class people are wealthy in terms of the world and how we use our resources is critical as well.
I think nature eventually is balancing itself out. I think that's when the epiphany moment comes, where people wake up, when there's a spontaneous event that people have to wake up and realize that,
nature is going to go on, and nature just keeps on going whether we're here or not.
Absolutely.
So it's up to us to take the control that we can, and we need to be wise rather than just cunning. I mean, people are very cunning.
They are.
But we need to wake up as a culture and as a nation if we do want to go towards a more positive future. Right now, the directions we're going we're making too little change too slowly. And these problems are coming up fast.
Well,
as an older person, I have less time to live, but younger people and the next generations, without real change, we are just making a really big problem for ourselves.
Well, I want to thank you for discussing this topic with me today, Carl. I want to thank you for coming on the show, and I want to just let everybody know out there that is there any kind of way people can get in touch with you at all?
They could email me at my email address, cgjohnston@ysu.edu. If somebody has something they'd like to discuss with me. I'd like to thank you for the invitation, Brian. Thank you very much for inviting me to your show.
All right, everybody. I want to thank you for tuning to the Media8tor. Carl Johnston, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I want to tell everybody to be safe out there and protect your environment and try to be as safe as possible. Thank you so much, Carl, for coming on the show. Have a good week, everybody. And thank you for tuning to the Media with me, Brian West, and Alicia Sparks.
Thank you.